Hi, Amit. It's so good to see you in person after such a long time.
Hi, Preeti ji. Thanks to this lockdown, I can't remember the last time I've spoken face to face with anyone. I've almost forgotten how to start a conversation.
Okay, let me make it easy for you. Let's play a game. A word association game.
This isn't one of your psychologist techniques, is it?
No, trust me, this will be fun.
Okay, tell me what we have to do.
Okay, I will say a word and you tell me the first word that comes to your mind. And then I will say the first word that comes to my mind.
Okay, let's play.
2021?
Challenging?
Hot?
2022.
New Year?
January.
February?
Babaji.
Love.
Valentine.
Valentine?
Preeti ji, looks like you're reminiscing of the time when Baba Hardev Singh ji said that when he first heard of Valentine, his ears heard well in time. Looks like the word association game worked and has given us a conversation starter.
You're right, Amit. What a wonderful topic for a podcast. Well in time.
Hello. Welcome to the February episode of Soul Vibes. Just like the month of February, this podcast will be short and sweet. I'm Amit.
I'm Preeti.
Sant Nirankari.
Speaking of time, Amit, you have been working from home for a while now. How are you finding it? Surely you feel like you have more time on hands, isn't it?
When I first started working from home, I thought I would use the extra time and do lots of things. I was going to go to the gym and get fit. But instead, I think I've put on 10 kilograms over the last 1 year alone. I feel like I've wasted so much time.
I totally get what you're saying. A lot of us made many goals during the pandemic, but many of us failed to achieve them.
Yeah, I felt like I'd have plenty of time to achieve what I wanted, but time kept slipping away.
It's interesting you mentioned time slipping away. When Babaji mentioned well in time in his vichar, he was urging us all not to waste precious time, because you never know whether you will have your next breath or not.
Speaking of next breath, let's get the views of an expert. Suboji from Brisbane is a respiratory and general medicine specialist. Who better to enlighten us on the importance of our next breath? Suboji, you've spent 20 years working in this field, in India, England, and now Australia. Can you share your insights on what you've witnessed throughout your career?
Sant Nirankari, Amit ji, Preeti ji, thank you for having me. Well, my biggest insight is that time is the most important and valuable asset. We all know that we have limited time on this planet, and we shouldn't take our life for granted. I clearly recall a particular incident when I was working as a specialist trainee doctor in UK. It was a night shift, maybe around 1 in the morning. We had an emergency, and a man in 80s was brought in by ambulance. Amit ji, he was looking very sick and was breathing very fast, literally gasping for air. He was connected to lots of tubes, wires to look at his heart rate, oxygen levels, blood pressure. I was there helping him with my team. He was talking to me and suddenly the alarm started going off and he became unresponsive right in front of me. He stopped breathing actually and went into cardiac arrest. I started CPR and resuscitating him. He did come around but needed intensive care to put him on a ventilator. Later on, I talked to his family to update them. I could see his family were not in regular touch with him. It was quite an unexpected event for everyone. They were quite scared, understandably, not sure what might happen, whether he will survive or not, whether they will get a chance to speak to him again. I could see their sadness, remorse and regret that why they couldn't be there when the father needed them the most. Amit ji, I have witnessed people dying unexpectedly in their 20s, 30s when they thought they had plenty of time at their disposal, but clearly they didn't. It's quite an eye-opener and humbling experience at the same time to see sick people every day. Some will recover, but some won't, despite all our efforts. I feel in those challenging moments, family meetings, there's a common theme. They all feel that they didn't spare enough time for their loved ones, and now they have limited or no time, and they can't do anything about it. Satguru Mata Sudikhsha ji said in her discourses last year that enlightened human beings always value the time at their disposal. At times when someone dies, we regret not having given importance to their words while they were alive. So it is better we value them while they are still with us. We thus need to take care of our relationships and responsibilities with the principles of loving devotion. Preeti ji, on reflection, I have realized that the time to act is now, right now. We should let go of any grudges and ask for forgiveness in time. I believe we should invest in our relations, families, and stay connected with love and make the most of each breath we have been blessed with.
Thank you, Subodh ji. I felt like I was there living the experience with you. Amit ji, I'm reminded of these simple yet beautiful lines from him. This life is made of time. Time is made of seconds. Seconds are more precious than silver, gold, and diamonds. No one can keep a second in a bank locker almirah, but it could do a wonder for years or an era.
So beautiful, Preeti ji. But again and again, we are reminded how precious time is. Yet we continue to waste it. I don't understand why we do this. Are we just lazy?
I think there is more to allowing time to pass than just laziness. Let's hear from Sejal ji from Sydney.
Sant Nirankari, Preeti ji.
Sejal ji, you're a high school student and close to completing your final exams. There must be a lot of pressure on you to use the time properly. How do you manage your time and not get distracted?
I can definitely relate to this, as last year, whilst completing my 10th grade, I developed an unhealthy habit of procrastinating as my studies were becoming harder and more serious, especially during lockdown, when there were no teachers to help me out or stop me from being distracted, and therefore I was unable to complete my schoolwork in time. This made me feel crammed with more work and stressed in the long run, as I was staying up late to finish schoolwork, which then disturbed my sleep pattern, making me anxious and moody. Not only that, but I felt like I wasn't performing to the best of my ability. I was worried because my final exams were approaching and I was determined to ace them. But I realized that this is not how I wanted to utilize my time. I did not want to feel constant stress and pressure. I had to find the reason as to why I was procrastinating. I observed that it wasn't the schoolwork that was negative or too difficult. Rather, it was the way I was feeling those negative emotions towards my studies. And as a result, I was easily distracted. Preeti ji, I believe that many youngsters have had similar experiences to me because they were terrified of failing at a task which they find too difficult to achieve, or being too overconfident to the point of setting far too many unreasonable goals within a short span. I also realized it could be the feeling of FOMO, fear of missing out, as everyone wants to fit in with their peers, whether it's by playing the latest video game or watching a trending TV show. No one wants to miss out. So I asked myself, how can I really overcome procrastination? When I was trying to combat this, I told myself that all the time I waste could be spent utilizing that time productively. So I started setting smart goals, minimized distractions, took breaks, completed tasks on time, and most importantly, had time to do Simran and regularly attend satsang. Amitji, this really helped me to stop procrastinating and feeling stressed, as well as giving me positive thoughts in my day-to-day life, providing me with a higher sense of motivation and self-control.
Thank you, Sejulji. I can only commend you on being so proactive. Preeti, listening to Sejulji, it brought back so many memories of when we were students, and we had so many different things to juggle in our life.
That's right. But that feeling of FOMO, the fear of missing out, doesn't always go away as you get older. Face it, how many times do we check our social media apps in a day? What's the first thing we all do when we wake up? We check our phones, isn't it?
And as Sejulji said, FOMO can be a cause of distraction. But I think FOMO also leads to greater unhappiness and unrest in our day-to-day lives.
That's true. And as we feel more unhappy because of this FOMO, we spiral into spending more and more time on social media trying to remedy this feeling, soothe ourselves. But in actual fact, all we have done is manage to waste more time.
The interesting thing about this is that humans wasting time is an age-agnostic phenomenon. Sejulji as a teenager spoke to the challenges of that age group. But as we grow, we are faced with new challenges, all of which impact our ability to achieve the goals we set ourselves. Shrutiji from Perth has just completed her higher studies and is working as an education consultant. Shrutiji, have you experienced challenges in managing your time as you've moved through adulthood?
Thanks, Amitji. I understand what Sejulji said about the difficulties we face when we are young. However, I feel once you finish your education and you are into the real world, being a grown-up has its own challenges because of added responsibilities and increased expectations. For me, I always had very high expectations from myself. I used to get the best grades in my high school. I wanted to excel in my life and build a successful career in finance. I even moved all the way to Australia for my studies. I felt that I'm going exactly in the direction that I wanted it to be. But doesn't it sound too good to be true, Amit? Nothing ever goes as you plan it. So when I came here, life struck me hard in more ways than one. Lack of friends, being in isolation, and I also suffered from a traumatic experience. It had almost ruined my career. I was so emotionally drained that my marks dropped from being the highest to be barely able to pass an exam. I even failed in a professional exam that was really important for my career. I had absolutely hit rock bottom. In that lost feeling where I couldn't see any path forward, the only thing that kept me going was my faith in Nirankari. If it wasn't for the faith in Nirankari that had built inside me over the years since childhood, I might not even be able to live. I prayed every day to bless me with the strength to keep going and to stay strong spiritually. I realized that I need to rediscover myself. And the natural way that came to me was through self-introspection, a process of conscious self-awareness. I took inspiration from wherever I could. And I heard Mel Robbins saying online that even if you're tired, you can push yourself to work hard. Even when you're lazy, you can choose to be active. And even if you're feeling angry and frustrated, you can choose to be loving and polite. That is what I have learned from my true master Satguru Mata Sudikhsha ji as well. That we may not be perfect as human beings, but we can make certain decisions to be a better version of ourselves. The truth is, we always have a choice. Nirankari has given us the free will to choose our own path. And we can choose what we want to become every day, every moment. And the important thing to remember is that we need to decide now before it is too late and this life is over. Today, I have friends and people all around me that I could talk to, and I have started to regain my confidence to do better with my life and keep going. Preeti ji, as Baba Hardev Singh ji used to quote, "Yesterday, when I was clever, I wanted to change the world. Today, when I'm wise, I want to change myself."
Thank you, Shruti ji, for sharing your experiences with us. This was very touching. Amit ji, Shruti ji really hit the nail on the head. The first step to making sure we make the best use of time that Nirankari has bestowed upon us is to recognize that we are in fact not doing things well in time.
Yes, and as she mentioned, the only way to improve yourself is to firstly go through the process of self-introspection and identify what goals you really want to achieve.
And it was a beautiful goal that Shruti ji identified, to be a better version of yourself each and every day.
It reminds me of the story of the marathon runner from Kenya, who was only a few meters from finishing first in the race. But he got confused by the signs and stopped as he thought he had already crossed the finish line. The runner in second place, a Spanish man, recognized that the Kenyan man was confused. Instead of running past him to claim victory, the Spanish runner pushed the Kenyan runner over the finish line to ensure that the Kenyan man won. When the Spanish runner was asked about his actions, he said, "My dream is that one day we can have some sort of community life where we push ourselves and help each other win."
Amazing. I love this story. Because even though the Spanish runner had the goal of winning the race, when he was presented with the opportunity to do the right thing, he took it straight away, in the moment that mattered. He may not have won the race, but he excelled in his journey.
That's a great way to look at it, Preeti ji. Let's talk to Niveta ji from Adelaide. Niveta ji, you are a landscape architect who undertakes the design process to meet your client's vision. What do you think is more important, the process or the end result?
Interesting question, Amit. Sometimes uncertainty about the future makes us anxious and stressed in the present. We spend so much time figuring about our goals and worrying about what the future holds for us that we forget to even live in the present. I think I've realized this quite often at work as well. As you mentioned, Amit, we have so many clients that come to us with their own specific requirements. We're overwhelmed by their demands, as someone wants a beautiful lawn with big trees, someone wants an extravagant fountain, and another person wants all of it. And we, as architects, we promise to deliver our best design. But if I'm being honest, the truth is that when we sit on the design board, we don't know what we're going to create. We don't know how the plan will look like or whether the client is even going to like it or approve it. All we're sure of is the process that we need to follow to achieve the end results. I think what we do is that we break a big project into small tasks and try to complete those in time. More importantly, we keep faith in the process and try to put in our best with the time that we have got. Another thing that I've noticed quite often is that the design that I start with is way different from the end results. There's so many things that change and influence the final product. Things that were not planned for, things that create additional pressure and self-doubt. I remember this one particular incident that I faced a while back. I had a project deadline in 2 days. All drawings were almost near completion, and we get an email from the service consultant explaining to us that we need to change our whole design due to a plumbing pipe going under the lawn. And here we were, back to square one after all the hard work that we had put in. That day, I left work at midday. I had given up. I went home and I was just listening to Babaji's discourses just to calm myself down when I heard him talk about the prayer of serenity. It said, "God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. And I think that is all that I needed, the faith to accept the change and the strength to adapt it and move forward. Every now and then when I sit down and I try to reflect back on my days, I realize that whenever I'm starting a new project, I am so stressed, I'm so anxious, but is it all even worth it? I get tensed about the deliverables that I'm unable to focus on my tasks for the day. I waste so much time thinking about what I need to achieve tomorrow, rather than working on it at this point in time. If only I would put a little more faith in the process, it would save me so much trouble and so much time. Preeti ji, I totally believe that sometimes the process is more important than the end game. There's also a beautiful quote by Marty Rupin that says, "Seize the day, then let it go." So now I think what I try to do at least is do my best today and have faith in God to give me the outcome that's best for me. Everything will never go my way, and I think I've realized that, and I can't even control it. But what I have is a time today, and I need to learn to make the most of it. The weight of the rest needs to be dropped on the shoulder of the Creator who controls the world. I think, Amit ji, I find a certain sense of peace and satisfaction in that, which helps me lead my life happily.
Thank you, Nimeta ji, for shedding a whole new light on the term journey matters. Amit ji, it's funny how we get so wrapped up in the end result that we ignore the process and steps we need to complete to have any opportunity of achieving that end result.
That's right. But even though we know our goal and can focus on the process, there is still another step. As Satguru Mata Sudikhsha ji said in her recent discourse, even when we know the path and process, life can only become beautiful if we intend to do so, making a willful choice.
Amit ji, this is interesting. Why don't we ask our next speaker to share his understanding on this? I would like to welcome Vivek ji from Melbourne.
Tananka ji.
Vivek ji, what do you think the willful choices that Mataji is referring to, and how do we ensure we achieve them well in time?
Preeti ji, in my humble opinion, and if we understand that life is really so fragile, and time is one resource which is most valuable and scarce, then automatically there should be a sense of urgency to sort my priorities and put the most important task at forefront. Probably one reason for complacency is lack of realization. Like Subodhji pointed out, that by the time we realize that every story has an ending, it's already too late. Or perhaps we have no clarity of our priorities. When writing an examination, we are allocated a time period, and we still try to prioritize the answers which carry most weightage. But in life, there is no guaranteed time allocation. And yet, I sometimes ignore the most important aspects of life. And that is to understand my true purpose, realizing my true identity. Like Baba Hardev Singh ji quoted, self-realization through God realization. And then life is to be lived as a realized soul then after. Personally, I think there is no scope of procrastination here, as the breath I just inhaled could be my last opportunity. Baba Hardev Singh ji and Satguru Mata Sudikhsha ji guided that the best possible way of utilizing each breath is to spend it in the realization of Nirankar, on path of self-correction. Let thy vices die before thee. Sister Sejal ji pointed that both uncertainty or overconfidence eventually led to dissatisfaction. And I think uncertainty is mainly due to lack of faith in Supreme Consciousness Nirankar. And overconfidence is perhaps due to me forgetting that who is really in the driver's seat of this universe. As Ralph Abernathy said, I don't know what the future may hold, but I know who holds the future. This literally stirs my focus back to present whenever I'm getting carried away. If a resource is scarce, it should be used wisely and not wasted on unnecessary or destructive purposes. We may not get to choose our situations sometimes, but we can definitely choose to be happy and unperturbed in those moments. Preeti ji, attaining that state of bliss, establishing connection with supreme consciousness and replacing vices with virtues is what we can do now.
Thank you, Vivek ji, for your enlightening thoughts. Amit ji, we've had such a wonderful conversation on the value of time that we didn't realize that time has flown by and we have come to the end of the podcast.
How strange. I wasn't sure how to start our conversation, and now I don't want it to end.
But before we finish, tell me, what really stood out for you in the discussion we've had?
Preeti ji, we've heard so many great aspects that it's very hard for me to pinpoint one thing. For many, time is an abstract thing, but the human experience makes it clear that time is a finite commodity. And we have no guarantee of how much of this commodity we have been gifted. Even with this experience, we continue to get distracted in how we use our time. But this seems to me because at times we're not sure of what our goal is, and at other times we don't know what steps we need to follow to get to our goal. All the confusion, though, can be remedied if we take the path of spirituality. Because through enlightenment, our goal is revealed, and the steps needed to achieve the goal are provided.
Wow, Amit ji, I asked for 1 point, and you have given me so many. But that is the beauty of having meaningful discussions and sharing our thoughts with each other.
So true. And I forgot to mention one more point as well, that what really resonated with me was that we could spend hours, days, and months worrying about time. But the time to make a difference and affect change is right now.
Exactly, Amit ji. As Baba Hardev Singh ji beautifully said, each breath is truly taken care of when we spend it in constant awareness of the true Master. If we do this, then our breath is a celebration, our age is a celebration, our moving around is a celebration, our sitting or standing is a celebration. Everything becomes a celebration.
So let's celebrate and make the most of this blissful life.
Well in time. Sant Nirankari.